Hey everybody, today or this week we're going to talk about the family connection and how important parents are to the foundation of literacy and developing literacy for students. So, yep, I'm going to make sure my volume is good, which I think we're good. So family involvement is so important, and I apologize, these slides are fairly text heavy, which is against PowerPoint slide rules, but I'm just going with it today. I'm doing this on that rainy, terrible Monday where everything is dreary outside. So I don't know why I felt like dreary. So anyway, significance of family involvement. Parental involvement in their children's learning positively affects a child's performance at school. So there's a lot of research that says just parent involvement in children's learning. And involvement in children's learning doesn't mean they're volunteering at school. It's just in children's learning in general, really impacts students' performance. And that impact is the same regardless of ethnic background, family income, maternal level of education, child's gender. Parental involvement, no matter what, will positively impact a child's learning. No matter what, all of those, you could have the poorest kid of the, poorest of the poor and the richest of the rich, and they have family involvement. They're both going to have positive results, or at least, now those results might look a little different, but they will both be positive. Children who grow up in a stimulating home environment, which means stimulating means has a great emphasis on learning opportunities. They do better economically, regardless of socioeconomic background. Parental involvement has a significant effect on children's achievement and adjustment after all other factors. So it's really important, and actually the TED Talk for this week talks about kind of parental involvement in learning as kind of the great equalizer. It can't minimize hurdles, but it's the one thing that can really help students with their aptitude and achievement. The most accurate predictor of a pupil's achievement is not parental income or social status, but to the extent to which parents are able to create a home environment that encourages learning, communicates high yet reasonable expectations for achievement. If parents are involved in their children's education, the change or the potential is huge. And specifically, since this is a literacy class, I wanted to address that literacy is one of the areas that actually parents don't need a whole lot to be involved, because just reading to your children and talking to your children can make such a profound difference. Actually reading aloud to your child at any age, especially at the foundation, has been found to be the most positive thing that a parent can do to improve a child's school readiness and school ability. So simple interactions, and it's not difficult. It's not that we're asking parents to spend hours a day, although right now we are because of the pandemic, but normally hours a day, we're just asking them to read to their children, expose them to books or magazines, newspapers, any type of print. Because children who come from richer home literacy environments, now that's richer as in the amount of literacy, not necessarily economic, show higher levels of reading knowledge and skills at the start of kindergarten. So again, you can have a really socioeconomically depressed family who can still support their children with literacy. There's also ample evidence that parents who promote reading as a valuable and worthwhile activity have children who are more motivated to read for pleasure. And involvement with reading activities at home has significant positive influences not only on reading achievement, language, and expressive language, but also students' interest and motivation to read. Family involvement at school. So that's family involvement and literacy at home. But family involvement at school, the earlier parents become involved in their children's learning practices, the more profound results and the longer lasting effects. So getting parents, that's why at kindergarten, at the lowest level, we really need to push parental engagement in school, because that will set it up for the future. But although parental involvement has the greatest effect in the early years, it's important that it happens all through and continues throughout their schooling. And again, if it starts off strong, then it's more likely to continue in adolescence and middle grades. Here's a study that found that parental interest in their child's education was the single greatest predictor of achievement at age 16. That's huge. We can't neglect the importance of parental involvement. And parental involvement outside the home, such as participating in extracurricular activities, also impacts on their children's reading, general knowledge, and math knowledge. So it's showing that interest and willingness to spend time engaging a child in multiple opportunities all have a positive effect on school. Here's a recent-ish study, 2006, so that's not that recent, but found that family involvement in schools matters most for children whose mothers have less education. More specifically, the authors found that increased family involvement in the school predicted increase in literacy achievement for low-income families. So again, if we're going to have something to help to boost those low-income kids, it's parent and family involvement. The more involved that the parents become, the more their children's literacy will improve. So a lot of low-income schools actually have literacy programs for whole families or help parents learn to read, because that will impact children learning to read. Types of parental involvement, parent and community involvement that's linked to student learning obviously has a greater effect on achievement. So any way you can get your child's parent involved that's connected to education obviously will have a greater impact. So things like communicating, reading with the child, setting expectations. There's a really, the TED Talk talks about bedtime routines, actually bedtime as being an important indicator of success. But reading and communication with the child are really the most important facets of parent engagement or parent involvement in numerous studies. So I'm going to just go in with this research study from Harvard, just a couple of things. Couple things I learned is that family involvement relates to low-income elementary children's literacy outcomes over time. So higher level of family involvement, and that includes things like parent-teacher conferences, visiting the classroom, school performances, volunteering, all of that are predictors for children's gains in literacy. It's dynamic. It changes over time. So changes in individual families' involvement over time were associated with changes in literacy performance. When parents become increasingly involved, then literacy performance improves. So if they don't start off involved, you can still catch them up, or the more involvement they have, the higher literacy rates will go up. It's really, really important for low-income students who are at risk of school failure. And again, there's a lot of work being done on family literacy to really help parents and teach parents how to read with their child, how to talk with their child, how to do the types of things that will help with language and literacy development. And research shows that parents that are involved in their children's education their children will have higher outcomes, regardless of what the parent's level of education is. It also increases positive feelings about literacy and improves their children's literacy performance. Basically, children see literacy as a positive thing when they get to see their parents engage in it with them. And two more. Went too far. School context predicts family involvement. So don't think that family involvement only happens in the home. The schools actually can promote and encourage family involvement. An overall positive school context that includes child and family strengths, supports students, supports families, invests time, teachers' outreach, that predicts higher level of family involvement, which predicts higher level of literacy for students. So you can't control what happens in the home, But you meaning the teachers in the school, can provide the foundation for what happens at home. So again, the school context specifically can support family involvement. And I love this picture. It looks like Leave It to Beaver or something from the 1950s. Kind of cracks me up. That's why I put it in there. So the last slide, and then I'm going to stop this and I'm going to pick up with a different screencast, is that family involvement should be a central aim of practices and policies to reduce the achievement gap between children from families with higher and children with families of lower level of education. Policymakers, school leaders, teachers need to think how to integrate family involvement into their instruction. It is not an add-on. It is so crucial to children's literacy development. So schools can create policies that develop school climate, welcomes parents, develops school-wide infrastructure that supports teacher and family communication, family resource centers, family school coordinators. Schools can dedicate in-service hours towards training teachers to become aware of family involvement and develop the skills to outreach with families. So the next couple of slides, which I'm going to do in another screencast, is what does this look like? So hopefully you saw in the first part of the slideshow how incredibly important family involvement is to children's literacy gains and children's literacy success. So how do schools foster this? How could a teacher foster this very important part